Welcome back to Inside Vietnam, where we share the unfiltered stories of Western expats whose search for love and belonging in Southeast Asia takes unexpected turns. Today's story comes from Seamus O'Brien, a 61-year-old Irishman from Cork who spent 40 years managing construction crews before retiring to Vietnam in search of something he couldn't quite name. What he found in a small coffee shop near Bui Vien Street would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself, about reading people, about second chances. This one's going to stick with you. Here's his story, in his own words. My name is Seamus O'Brien, and I spent the better part of my life on building sites across Ireland. Galway, Dublin, back to Cork. 40 years as a site foreman, which means I managed crews, kept projects on schedule, and most importantly, learned to read people. You have to, on a construction site, know who's a grafter and who's taking the piss. Who's telling you straight and who's covering up a mistake that'll cost you thousands if you don't catch it early. I was good at my job, proud of it even. Could walk onto a site, assess the work, spot the weak points in both the structure and the team before the first tea break. That skill served me well for 4 decades. Kept me employed through recessions, earned me decent money, built me a reputation. What it didn't do was keep my family together. The marriage ended 15 years back. We've been together 23 years, 2 kids, the whole bit. I won't say it was all her fault or all mine. Probably a bit of both, if I'm being honest. But the divorce itself wasn't the worst of it. Plenty of people divorce and manage to stay civil for the children's sake. We didn't manage that. My ex-wife, she had a gift for making me the villain in every story. Missed a birthday because I was on a site in Galway? That became proof I didn't care. Paid child support every month without fail? Never acknowledged, so the kids assumed I was a deadbeat. Tried to ring them, arrange visits. She'd tell them I was harassing her, making her uncomfortable, that they didn't have to talk to me if they didn't want to. And they didn't want to. I fought it for years. Sent cards, gifts, showed up to school events when I could. My daughter would look right through me like I was a stranger. My son stopped answering my calls by the time he was 16. Their mother had painted me as someone who'd chosen work over family, money over love, my own pride over their well-being. And from their perspective, all the evidence supported her version. The worst part was my mother's funeral, 3 years back. I stood there in the cemetery in Cork, rain coming down the way it does in Ireland, watching them lower the woman who'd raised me into the ground. My daughter was there. 25 years old, living in Dublin, drove down for her grandmother's funeral. She stood maybe 20 feet from me, the entire service. Never once looked in my direction, not once. When I approached her afterward, just to say hello, ask how she was, she turned and walked to her car without a word. My son didn't even come. That was the moment I realized it was done. Whatever chance I'd had to repair things, to explain my side, to build some kind of relationship with my own children, it was gone. They were adults now, with their own lives, their own version of who their father was, and I wasn't part of it. Wouldn't be part of it. 500 become a ghost in my own family story. Cork became unbearable after that. Every pub held memories. Every street corner was somewhere I'd once lived a different life. Sundays were the worst. I'd sit in my local, nurse a pint, watch families come in together, fathers and sons sharing a laugh, daughters meeting their dads for Sunday dinner. And I'd wonder where exactly it all went wrong. The thing is, I wasn't broke. 40 years of steady work had set me up well. Construction pension, plus, I owned a small rental property that brought in decent income. All told, about 88,000 euros a year. Comfortable. More than comfortable, really. Could afford a nice life in Cork if I wanted one. But what's the point of money if you're spending it alone? What's the point of a pension if every day feels exactly the same? Wake up, walk to the shop for the paper, coffee at the same cafe where nobody knows your name, home to watch telly, bed. Repeat until you die. I didn't make a dramatic decision to leave Ireland. It wasn't some breakdown or crisis moment. It happened gradually, the way most important things do. I was on a site in Cork, last job before full retirement, and one of the subcontractors mentioned he'd just got back from visiting a mate in Da Nang, Vietnam. Lovely place, he said. Warm, cheap, and nobody knows your baggage. That phrase stuck with me, nobody knows your baggage. I started looking into it, reading forums, watching videos, learning about visa requirements. Vietnam seemed to tick all the boxes. Tropical climate, which would be grand for my dodgy knee that had been getting worse in the Irish damp. Affordable, so my pension would stretch. And most importantly, it was far enough away that I wouldn't run into anyone from my old life. I told myself I wasn't running away. I was just choosing a different building site for the rest of my life. Fresh project, clean slate, no history to carry around. Made sense when I put it like that. Practical decision, really. The kind I'd made 100 times on construction jobs. Booked the flight in late January 2023. One-way ticket to Ho Chi Minh City. Told the lads at the pub I was off to Southeast Asia for an extended holiday. See how I like it, I said. Might stay a while. They wished me well, raised a glass, made jokes about me finding a young Thai bride. I laughed along, but the jokes landed wrong somehow. Like they knew something I didn't want to admit. The last Sunday before I left, I sat in that same pub, same stool I'd occupied every Sunday for years. Watched a father and his adult son come in, clearly meeting for their weekly pint together. Easy conversation, comfortable silences, the kind of relationship that doesn't need performing. The kind I'd never have. I finished my Guinness, paid my tab, walked out into the cork rain one last time. Vietnam wasn't about finding love or starting over or any of that romantic nonsense you see in the films. It was about finding a place where I could exist without the weight of what I'd lost pressing down on me every minute of every day. Where nobody would look at me and see the failed husband, the absent father, the man who'd built everything except what actually mattered. At least, that's what I told myself. Right so. That's how I ended up on a plane to Saigon in early February 2023, 61 years old, financially comfortable, emotionally bankrupt, and absolutely certain I knew what I was doing. I'd spent 40 years reading people, spotting trouble, making smart decisions under pressure. Surely I could handle a simple retirement in a foreign country without cocking it up. Turns out, the thing about running from your problems is they're surprisingly good at following you. And the thing about loneliness is it makes you see what you want to see, not what's actually there. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I stepped off the plane at Ton Son Nhat Airport in early February 2023, and the heat hit me like opening an oven door. 32 degrees at 9:30 in the morning. The air was thick, wet, nothing like Ireland. I was sweating through my shirt before I'd even cleared immigration. The taxi ride into District 1 was chaos. Motorbikes everywhere, weaving between cars, entire families balanced on a single scooter. A woman with 3 kids, and what looked like a week's worth of groceries, somehow navigating traffic that would give a cork driver a heart attack. No helmets on the little ones. Horn honking constant. I gripped the door handle and tried not to watch. The apartment I'd found online turned out to be decent. Small building on a side street, off Lithonjo. 6th floor walk-up, no lift. $600 a month for what would have cost me $1,500 back home. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, air conditioning that rattled but worked. Spacious by Cork standards. The landlady spoke no English, just smiled and pointed at things, mimed how the hot water worked, handed me 2 keys. First night, I lay awake listening to the city. Motorbikes at all hours, someone's karaoke echoing from a few streets over. Dogs barking, the aircons rattle. Tried to sleep, couldn't, finally gave up around 5 and went for a walk. That became my routine those first weeks. Up at dawn, out into the streets before the real heat started. I'd walk down to the Saigon River, watch the city wake up. Old folks doing Tai Chi in the park. Street vendors setting up their faux stalls, broth already simmering, smell of star anise and ginger cutting through the exhaust fumes. Young people on motorbikes heading to work, all wearing face masks against the pollution. My knee felt better in the warmth. I'll give Vietnam that. Years of Irish damp had made it stiff, aching. Here, the heat seemed to loosen something. I could walk for an hour without the usual grinding pain, but Christ, the loneliness hit different here. Back in Cork, at least I knew the landscape of my isolation. Familiar pubs, familiar faces, who didn't know me but existed in the same space. Here, I was completely untethered. Nobody knew me, nobody cared. I could disappear tomorrow, and the city would just keep moving. Week 2, I found the coffee shop. Pure accident, really. I'd been walking around District 1, trying to get my bearings, and ducked down a side street near Viet to avoid a sudden downpour. Small place, maybe 6 tables, open front, old woman behind the counter. Not touristy. Mostly locals, few motorbikes parked out front, everyone drinking from these small glasses with condensed milk at the bottom. I pointed at what the bloke next to me was drinking. The woman nodded, made me one. Si soi da, I'd learn later. Vietnamese iced coffee. Strong as diesel, sweet as sin, nothing like the coffee back home. But there was something about it, the ritual of it, The way it dripped slowly through the little metal filter into the glass. Made you wait for it. Made you sit there. Cost about 50 cents. 50 cents for coffee that would have been 5 quid in Cork. I sat there for an hour, watching the rain, watching people, and nobody bothered me. Perfect. Started going back daily. Same table if I could get it, corner spot where I could watch the street. The old woman started recognizing me by week 3. Would nod when I came in, start making my coffee without me having to order. I appreciated that. Small acknowledgement that I existed. Week 4, I noticed one of the waitresses. Young girl, late 20s maybe, always moving. She'd clear tables, wipe them down, bring drinks, all efficient but not rushed. There was a grace to how she worked. She wasn't wearing the tight dresses you'd see on the girls over in Viet trying to catch tourist attention. Just simple clothes, hair pulled back, focused on her job. I didn't think much of it at first. She was just part of the scenery, like the motorbikes or the street vendors. But week 5, she started having my coffee ready before I sat down. Small thing, but it registered. Someone was paying attention. Someone noticed I came at the same time every day, ordered the same thing. Week 6, she asked me a question. I was sitting there, staring at my phone, pretending to read news from home, but really just avoiding the empty apartment for another hour. She came over with my coffee, set it down, and said, "You okay today, Uncle Seamus?" Uncle. That's what they call older foreign men here. Term of respect, I'd learn. But hearing my name in her voice, with that concern in it, something shifted in my chest. "Grand," I said. "Just grand, love." She smiled, nodded, went back to work. But the question stayed with me. "You okay today?" When was the last time anyone had asked me that? When was the last time anyone noticed whether I was okay or not? I started paying more attention after that. Her name was Lynn. The old woman who ran the place was her aunt. The coffee shop had been in the family for years. Lynn worked there most mornings, sometimes afternoons. She lived somewhere in District 5, came in on a motorbike I'd see parked out front. Week 8, slow afternoon, rain keeping customers away, she sat down at my table. Just pulled out the chair and sat. Asked where I was from, why Vietnam, how long I was staying. I kept it vague. Ireland, Cork, needed a change, not sure how long. She nodded like that made perfect sense. Didn't pry? Didn't ask the questions I didn't want to answer. Just sat there, comfortable in the silence. Then she started teaching me Vietnamese not formally, just naturally. "This is "C'est fait soit da." You say it like this." Laughed when I mangled the tones with my Cork accent. Vietnamese has 6 tones, she explained. Same word said different ways, means completely different things. I sounded like I was asking for coffee with a completely different meaning, apparently. I taught her English phrases in return. Irish sayings that made no sense translated directly. Soft day for drizzly weather. Grand altogether for everything being fine. She'd repeat them, getting the sounds wrong, both of us laughing. She asked about my work. I told her construction stories. 40 years of building sites, managing crews, the characters you meet. Made her laugh with stories about lads showing up hungover, equipment going missing, the time a foreman in Galway tried to convince me a collapsed wall was part of the design. For the first time in years, someone was actually listening to me. Not out of obligation, not out of politeness, but because she seemed genuinely interested. Because she saw something in an old Irish builder worth hearing about. I started arranging my entire day around those morning coffees. Wake at 6, walk the river, arrive at the coffee shop by 8, stay until 10, 11 sometimes. Other expats started recognizing me. British bloke named Martin, been in Vietnam 7 years, would nod hello. Australian couple, retirees, would chat about visa runs and where to get decent bacon, but I wasn't there for them. I was there because for an hour or two each morning, sitting in that small coffee shop off Viet Street, watching Lynn work, occasionally exchanging a few words, teaching each other bits of language, I felt less alone than I had in years. Not happy, exactly, not fixed, but less like I was disappearing. She called me Uncle Seamus, asked if I was okay, laughed at my stories, remembered my coffee order. And Christ help me, that was enough to make me think maybe Vietnam could be more than just affordable anonymity. Maybe it could be somewhere I mattered to someone, even in some small way. Looking back now, I should have recognized what was happening. Should have seen I was vulnerable in ways I'd never been on a construction site. Loneliness isn't like structural damage you can spot with a practiced eye. It's invisible. It makes you grateful for the smallest scraps of attention. It makes you confuse kindness with connection. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. All I knew in those first months was that Lynn remembered my name, and after years of being forgotten by the people who were supposed to remember me most, that felt like everything. By May, 3 months into my Vietnam life, I'd settled into a rhythm that revolved entirely around that coffee shop. Wake at 6, river walk, coffee shop by 8. I told myself it was about the coffee, about having a place to go, about routine. But I knew what it was really about. It was about Lynn Mine May. I decided to ask her to dinner. Nothing dramatic, just dinner. Two people who'd been chatting for months, getting to know each other properly, simple. But I rehearsed it in my head for 3 days like a teenager asking out his first girl. When I finally did it, her reaction caught me completely off guard. She pulled back, actually stepped back half a pace, her smile faltering. I don't know, Uncle Seamus. You are customer. My aunt may be not happy. That hesitation, that reluctance, it felt so different from what I'd been warned about by other expats. The bar girls in Boy Viet who'd approach you before you'd even sat down. The girls who'd ask for drinks, for phone credit, for help with their English course fees, all within the first conversation. Lynn wasn't doing that. She was pulling away, which made me want it more. Just dinner, I said. Friends, nothing inappropriate. Just want to hear more about your life, your family. Practice my terrible Vietnamese. She bit her lip, thinking, finally nodded. Okay, but Vietnamese food, not Western restaurant. You eat pho? Love pho, I lied. I'd had it twice, wasn't sure about it yet, but I'd eat cardboard if it meant sitting across from her for an hour. We met at a local place in District 3, nowhere near the tourist areas. Plastic stools, fluorescent lights, steam rising from enormous pots of broth. She ordered for us in rapid Vietnamese, and the owner brought 2 bowls of soup with more things floating in it than I could identify. She taught me how to eat it properly. Add the herbs, squeeze the lime, don't drink from the spoon like a Westerner. I scalded my mouth on the broth, made a mess with the noodles, and she laughed. Not mocking, gentle. Like watching a child figure something out. That's when she told me her story. Grew up in Vinh Long province in the Mekong Delta. Small village, poor family. Father died when she was 12. She came to Saigon at 19 to find work, send money home to her mother and younger brother. Worked in a garment factory first, 12-hour days, terrible pay. Her aunt offered her the coffee shop job 3 years back. Better hours, better treatment. I want to have my own business someday, she said, staring into her pho. Small cafe maybe, like my aunt, but mine. But this is only dream. I'm not educated like you. I'm a builder, love, I said. Not a professor. Left school at 16 to work on sites. She looked surprised. But you seem so smart. You know many things. Knowing how to read blueprints and manage crews isn't the same as being educated. I'm as working class as they come. Something shifted in her expression. Like I'd become more real to her. Less foreign businessman, more regular bloke who'd worked with his hands his whole life. We started meeting for dinner once a week after that, then twice weekly. She'd take me to places I'd never have found on my own, markets where we were the only non-Vietnamese for blocks. Street food stalls where the vendors knew her by name. Com Tom with grilled pork and pickled vegetables. Ban Jao that she taught me to wrap in lettuce and herbs. Bun Ja in District 10 that she said was the best in the city. She still worked at the coffee shop. Still called me Uncle Seamus in front of her aunt. But when we were alone, there was warmth. Something building. She'd touch my arm when she laughed. Let conversations run late into the evening. Tell me about her dreams, her family, her life. Early July, she mentioned her birthday in passing. July 3rd. What is nothing, she said. Just another day. What would you want, I asked, if you could have anything? She shook her head. I don't need anything, Uncle Seamus. You already give me too much. Your time, your stories, your friendship. But I'd noticed her phone. Screen cracked so badly you could barely see through it. She'd apologize when texts came through, squinting to read them. I save money for new one, she'd said once. Maybe next year. I bought her an iPhone SE from a shop in District 1. Nothing fancy. About $200 USD. Had them set it up, transfer her SIM card. Wrapped it simply. Gave it to her on her birthday over dinner at a small restaurant near the river. When she opened it, her eyes filled with tears. Uncle Seamus, this is too much. I cannot accept. You can, and you will. Can't have you squinting at that broken screen. Besides, what's the point of having money if I can't spend it on someone who matters to me? Someone who matters to me. The words hung there between us. She cried, actually cried, reached across the table and took my hand. You were so kind, so good. I never meet man like you before. That night felt like a turning point, like we'd crossed from friendship into something else, something I hadn't let myself hope for. Then came late June. I noticed she was distracted at the coffee shop, stressed, not her usual calm self. Took me 3 days to get her to tell me what was wrong. My aunt, she finally admitted. Coffee shop rent. Owner want to increase, but business is slow. My aunt cannot pay. She maybe have to close. How much? I asked. $3,000. But Uncle Seamus, I cannot ask you this. Is too much money. $3,000. I'd spent more than that on a single-site repair back in Cork. Less than 2 months' rent in my old apartment. Nothing really, in the grand scheme of things. But I thought it through like I would a construction decision. What are the outcomes? If the shop closes, Lynn loses her job. She'd have to find other work, probably back in a factory. I'd lose my daily routine, my connection to her. The aunt loses her business. If I help, the shop stays open. Lynn keeps working there. I see her every day. I prove I'm serious about her, about us, about being part of her life. Practical investment in my own happiness. I'll take care of it, I said. No, Uncle Seamus, I cannot. You can. Consider it an investment. I like this coffee shop. I like seeing you every day. Business decision, right so, purely practical. I withdrew $3,000 cash from the ATM the next day. US dollars, because that's what she'd need. Handed her the envelope at the coffee shop. She cried, kissed my cheek. I pay you back, Uncle Seamus. I promise. Every month, I pay you back. I waved it off. Family helps family, right so? The word slipped out naturally. Family. But once I'd said it, everything changed. She looked at me differently, not as customer, not as older foreign man, as family, as someone who'd proven himself through action, not just words. Her aunt came over, said something in Vietnamese, tears in her eyes too. Lynn translated, she says you save us. She says you're a good man, sent by Buddha. I went home that night feeling like I'd finally done something right, finally used my money for something that mattered. Not another pint at a pub where nobody knew me. Not another empty Sunday. But helping people who needed it, being useful, being valued. Looking back, I can see exactly what was happening. Loneliness had made me desperate for purpose, for connection, for proof that I wasn't the failure my ex-wife painted me as. And $3,000 seemed like nothing compared to the feeling of being needed by someone. But at the time, it felt like the smartest decision I'd made in years. That's the thing about being lonely and 61 in a foreign country. You're so grateful for the smallest gestures of genuine affection that you mistake a business transaction for love. You're so desperate to matter to someone that you can't see the difference between kindness and calculation. I'd spent 40 years reading people on building sites. But I'd never been this vulnerable before. Never this isolated not, never this desperate to believe I deserved another chance at family. The money was just the beginning. August 2023. Lynn invited me to meet her family in the Mekong Delta. Her mother's birthday. I want you to meet them, she said. You are important to me. They should know you. Important to me. Christ, those words. We took a bus from the Mien Tai station. 3 hours south through flat countryside, rice paddies stretching to the horizon, water everywhere. Vinh Long Province. The bus was packed, locals with shopping bags and chickens and crates, me the only foreigner. Lynn held my hand the whole way, translating the occasional curiosity from other passengers. Where are you from? You marry Vietnamese girl? Very good, very good. Her mother came out first. Early 50s, worn down by hard work and tropical sun, but warm eyes. She took both my hands in hers, said something in Vietnamese, smiled. Lynn translated, she says welcome. She says our home is your home. Then grandmother, tiny woman, must have been 80. Brother Min, 19, shy, skinny, wouldn't make eye contact. Mother explained through Lynn that father had died in a fishing accident when Lynn was 12. Grandmother had lived with them ever since. They prepared a feast. More food than seemed possible from that small kitchen. Whole fish steamed with herbs, rice, vegetables. I couldn't identify. Soup with things floating in it. They kept refilling my plate, kept smiling, kept toasting with homemade rice wine that tasted like petrol, but warmed your chest. Communication was impossible without Lynn translating every word. But somehow, it didn't matter. They were trying so hard to make me feel welcome. Mother showed me photos of Lynn as a girl, skinny thing in a school uniform. Min showed me his English textbook from school, practiced a few phrases. Hello, mister. Nice to meet you. I am student. At one point, Mother held my hand and spoke directly to me, eyes serious. Lynn translated. She says you have kind face. She says you have suffered too. She can see this. She says maybe you and Lynn can heal each other. I had to look away, tears in my eyes. This woman who'd never met me, who couldn't speak my language, who lived in a house on stilts in rural Vietnam, saw something in me that my own family refused to see. That night, after dinner, Grandmother touched my face with her weathered hand, said something that made everyone laugh. Lynn blushed. She says you need Vietnamese wife to take care of you. She says Irish weather make you too serious. Vietnamese sun will make you smile again. Before we left the next morning, I gave Mother an envelope. $300. Birthday gift, I said through Lynn. Mother protested, tried to give it back. I insisted. It's custom, isn't it, to give money for birthdays? Lynn's eyes were wet. Uncle Seamus, you don't have to. I want to. Your family welcomed me. This is nothing. The bus ride back to Saigon, Lynn was quiet. Finally, she said, my mother really liked you. She says you were a good man. She worried about me here in city alone, but now she not worries so much. September rolled around. Lynn started staying over at my apartment occasionally. She was modest about it, traditional. Wouldn't move in properly without marriage. We talked late into the night about futures, about possibilities. She worried about the age difference, about what people would think. 33 years between us. Cork is full of people's opinions, I told her. I'm done listening to them. I care what you think, what your family thinks. The rest can fuck off. She smiled at my rare cursing. Mid-September, I bought a ring. Nothing fancy, simple gold band from a jeweler in Benthon Market. Cost me $200. Proposed in my apartment one evening after dinner. Got down on one knee, dodgy knee protesting, and asked her properly. Make an honest woman of me, will you? She laughed and cried at the same time. Uncle Seamus, you sure? I am just poor girl from Delta. You can find better. I don't want better. I want you, if you'll have me. She said yes. Then immediately, but simple wedding, okay? Registry office, no big party. I don't need expensive ceremony. I just need you. Even the wedding was modest in a way that felt genuine. October 15th, 2023, at the District 1 Registry Office. Her aunt came, 2 friends from the coffee shop. Martin, the British expat who'd become a mate. That was it. I hadn't told my kids. Couldn't face their judgment, their disapproval, their certainty that I was making a fool of myself. Small dinner after at a restaurant Lynn liked. We toasted with local beer. Her aunt gave a speech in Vietnamese I didn't understand, but it made Lynn cry. Martin pulled me aside later. You sure about this, mate? I mean, she seems lovely, but I'm sure, I said. And I was, completely certain. Lynn moved into my apartment properly. The first 2 weeks were everything I'd hoped for. She'd wake early, make Vietnamese coffee the proper way, cook breakfast. We'd go to markets together. She'd teach me more language. We talked about visiting Ireland next year, showing her Cork, introducing her to, well, to whoever would meet her. Then, 3 weeks after the wedding, she brought it up. Brother Min. He'd been accepted to university here in Ho Chi Minh City. She showed me the letter. Official letterhead, university seal, all the stamps, tuition and fees for the first year. $8,000. My family never ask you for anything, she said quietly. But Uncle Seamus, Min is so smart. This is his only chance. My mother cannot afford this. If he missed this year, he missed forever. He have to work in factory instead. I read the letter carefully, looked official. University of Economics. Prestigious program, started in November. $8,000. It was significant, nearly 10% of my yearly income. But it was also education, investment in a kid's future. Lynn's brother, my brother-in-law now, technically. Your mother knows about this? I asked. I called her yesterday. She cried. She's so proud of Min, but she cannot help. She tell me, do not ask Uncle Seamus, he already do too much. But I don't know what else to do. I looked at Lynn. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't pushing. Just presenting the situation, letting me decide. This is what family does, I thought. You help each other. Back in Ireland, I'd have paid for my own kids' education in a heartbeat if they'd let me. This was no different. I'll transfer it tomorrow, I said. Uncle Seamus, are you sure? It's so much money. It's an investment. In Min. In your family. In us. Education matters, love. If this gives him a better chance, it's worth it. She hugged me, cried into my shoulder. You are too good, too kind. I don't deserve you. You deserve everything, I said, and meant it. I transferred the $8,000 the next day. International bank transfer to the university account listed on the letter. Watched my balance drop. Total invested now, $11,300 since I'd met Lynn. Phone, coffee shop rent, mother's birthday, wedding expenses, now university. Still manageable. Still well within my means. And for what? A family that accepted me. A wife who needed me. A brother-in-law getting an education. Back in Cork, I'd have spent that on nothing. Pints I didn't need, meals I ate alone. Here, it was building something. Creating family. Making a difference. Looking back, I should have verified everything. Should have contacted the university directly. Should have insisted on being more involved in the process. Should have asked harder questions. But I wanted to trust her, needed to trust her. Because if I couldn't trust my own wife, what was the point of any of it? And that, right there, was the trap I'd walked into with my eyes wide open. November 2023. Married life settled into its rhythm. Lynn still worked at the coffee shop 3 days a week. Her choice, she said. Wanted to stay busy, help her aunt, maintain some independence. I respected that. Didn't want to be the older foreign husband who trapped his young wife in the apartment. But I started noticing things, small things. She was on her phone more, always texting in Vietnamese, screen angled away from me. When I'd walk into the room, she'd quickly close whatever app she was using. Not suspicious exactly, just private. I told myself it was normal. She's 28, I'm 61. Of course she has friends, a social life, conversations I'm not part of. Would be weird if she didn't. I was careful not to become that man, the controlling one, the jealous one, the one who'd driven his first family away. Late November, she came home stressed, quiet through dinner, picking at her food. It took me 2 days to get it out of her. My mother, she finally said, her diabetes is getting worse. I knew her mother had diabetes. She'd mentioned it during our visit to the Delta. Common enough condition, manageable with medication and diet. What's happened? I asked. She need treatment. Special medication, private clinic in Canno, public hospital. They give basic medicine, but not enough. Doctors say she need better treatment or she will have serious problems, maybe lose her foot. She showed me medical documents, mostly Vietnamese text, some English headers, clinic letterhead, treatment plan. Cost breakdown, $5,500 for 3 months of medication and treatment. My gut twisted. This was her mother's health, not optional, not negotiable. How soon does she need to start? Soon as possible. Doctors say her condition is getting bad fast. I didn't hesitate. What was I going to do? Let Lynn's mother lose her foot because I was tight with money? After everything her family had given me? The acceptance, the warmth, the welcome I'd never gotten from my own kids? I'll wire it tomorrow, I said. Lynn's eyes filled with tears. Uncle Seamus, I don't know how to thank you. You saved my family again and again. You are blessing from Buddha. My mother, she will cry when I tell her. She was more attentive after that. Warmer. Like the early days. Cooked my favorite meals. Laughed at my jokes. Held my hand when we walked. For a few weeks, I felt like we'd gotten back to something. Then December arrived with its own conversation. Lynn had been quiet for several days. Not distant exactly, just thoughtful, preoccupied. Finally, one evening after dinner, she opened up. Uncle Seamus, I've been thinking. About future. About us. My chest tightened. Here it comes, I thought. She's realized the age difference is too much. She wants out. I'm tired, she said. Saigon is so loud. So much pollution. Motorbikes, noise, every day the same. I miss the Delta. Miss the quiet. The river. The space to breathe. She talked about her dreams. Small business, maybe cafe or guest house. Somewhere near her family. Simple life. Clean air. Room to grow things. But this is only dream, she said. Same phrase she'd used that first dinner we'd had. I know we cannot afford. Then, carefully, she mentioned the house. Small property for sale near her family's village. Owner was moving to Saigon, needed to sell quickly. 3 bedrooms, small garden, river view, $45,000 US dollars, well below market because the owner wanted fast sale. We could buy it, she said quietly. Fix it up. Rent it out until we're ready to move. Or, she paused. Maybe someday your children visit. We have place for them. Nice place. Show them you have good life here, that you are not failure like they think. That last bit hit me like a hammer. She'd never mentioned my kids before, not directly, but she'd listened when I talked about them late at night, about the estrangement, about wanting them to see I'd built something worthwhile. She'd found the nerve I didn't even know was exposed. Let me see photos, I said. She pulled them up on her phone. Modest house, exactly like she'd described. Traditional Vietnamese style but well-maintained. River visible in the background. Garden overgrown but salvageable. The kind of place I could work on. I'm a builder after all. Could make it something special. I need to see the documents, I said. Property deed, survey, ownership papers. Of course, she said. I bring them tomorrow. Next day, she had them. All looked official to my untrained eye. Red stamps, Vietnamese text, official seals. Property was listed in Vinh Long province, exact location she'd described. Then came the part that should have stopped me cold. We should put property in Min's name, she said. For tax reason. Foreigners pay much more tax than Vietnamese citizen. Save us money. Later, when you get permanent residency, Min transfer to you, is normal way foreigners do this. Every instinct I'd honed on 40 years of construction sites started screaming. Never put property in someone else's name. Never trust paperwork. You can't verify. Never make a deal where you're not protected. But this was different, wasn't it? This was my wife, my family. You have to trust family. If you can't trust your wife, what's the point of marriage? How much time do we have to decide? I asked. Owner say he need answer by end of December. If we don't buy, he sell to someone else. This price, it won't last long. I did the math, $45,000. Add to the $11,300 I'd already spent. That's over $56,000 total. More than half my yearly income, substantial chunk of my savings. But what was I saving for? To die alone in Cork? To leave money to kids who wouldn't speak to me? Or to build something here, with people who actually wanted me around? The house would be proof, physical proof, that I'd succeeded at something, that I could provide, that I wasn't the failure my ex-wife had painted me as. If my kids ever did visit, they'd see it. Solid, real, evidence that their father had made something of his life. On December 28, 2023, I transferred $45,000 US dollars to the account Lynn provided. Property purchase for a house in Vinh Long province, title in Min's name for tax purposes, to be transferred to me later. Total investment, $56,300, roughly 63,000 euros, nearly 3/4 of my yearly income. Lynn was overjoyed, talked about paint colors, furniture we'd buy, maybe getting chickens like her mother had, growing vegetables in the garden, our future together in this place. For 2 weeks it felt worth it. Then January 2024 arrived, and everything started to shift. Lynn became distant. Not suddenly. Gradually. Like a door closing inch by inch. She was at the coffee shop less, sleeping later, going out in the afternoons to meet friends, always her phone in her hand, always texting in Vietnamese, always angling the screen away. The physical intimacy we'd had disappeared. She'd be tired, have a headache, need to wake up early. Always a reason. When I asked about the house, about when we could visit the property, she'd get vague. Paperwork still processing. Vietnam bureaucracy very slow. Maybe February. Maybe March. But we own it now, right? We could just go see it. Still has squatters. Previous owner's family. We have to wait for them to leave. Legal process. You wouldn't understand is complicated Vietnamese property law. When I pushed, she'd get defensive. Why you always question me? You don't trust your own wife. I'm not your employee you have to check on. That stung. Because she was right, I was checking on her. Watching her. Doubting. And I hated myself for it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd built something on sand, that the foundation I thought was solid was actually crumbling beneath me. Looking back, every warning sign was there. The phone behavior, the vagueness, the defensiveness, the gradual withdrawal. The same patterns I'd seen on building sites when someone was covering up mistakes. But I didn't want to see it, couldn't afford to see it. Because if Lynn wasn't genuine, if this whole thing was a con, then what did that make me? The fool my ex-wife said I was. The man who valued money over relationships. The failure who'd lost one family and bought a fake one to replace them. So I told myself it was cultural differences, language barriers, the stress of managing property remotely, normal marriage adjustments. I told myself a lot of things in January 2024. None of them were true. February 2024. I was at the coffee shop, same one where I'd met Lynn, though she rarely worked there anymore. Still went most mornings out of habit. The routine felt important, even if everything else had changed. Martin pulled me aside, the British expat, been in Vietnam 7 years, seen enough to know the patterns. He looked uncomfortable, kept glancing around like he didn't want to be having this conversation. Mate, I don't know how to say this, and maybe it's nothing, but I've seen your wife, with a younger Vietnamese bloke, several times. They seemed close. My first reaction was anger. How dare he? What do you mean close? Holding hands. Laughing. Look, I could be wrong. Maybe it's a cousin or something. Just thought you should know. We expats have to look out for each other, right? I wanted to tell him to fuck off. Wanted to defend Lynn. But the words stuck in my throat because part of me had been waiting for this. Expecting it. Where did you see them? District 3. Near the market. Twice last week. I thanked him. Told him it was probably nothing. Bought him a beer to show no hard feelings. Then went home and started watching Lynn more carefully. The phone behavior was constant. She'd angle it away whenever I was near. Type in Vietnamese, never English. Close apps the second I walked into a room. When I asked casually who she was texting, she snapped at me. My friends. Why are you always suspicious? Like Irish police. The accusation stung because she'd never been hostile before, never sharp with me. The sweetness I'd fallen for had edges now. Mid-February, I decided to ask about the house directly. We'd owned it for 2 months. Surely we could visit. When can we go see the property? I asked over dinner. I'd like to start planning the renovations. Her face tightened. Still problem with previous owner. Paperwork taking long time. Vietnam, not like Ireland. Everything take time here. But the deed is in Min's name now. We should have access. Still has squatters. Legal process to remove them. Maybe March, maybe April. You don't understand Vietnamese property law. Is complicated. Something in her tone had changed. The patience gone. The explanations becoming irritation in my questions. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay there listening to her breathe, wondering if Martin was right. Wondering if I'd been a fool all along. Next morning, I made a decision. Started with the university. Used Google Translate to compose an email in Vietnamese to the University of Economics admissions office. Asked about student enrollment for Nguyen Van Minh, matriculation date, November 2023. Sent it from a Gmail account, not my usual email. Waited. Response came 3 days later. No student by that name enrolled for the 2023-2024 academic year. My stomach dropped. Pulled out the acceptance letter Lynn had shown me. Examined it properly for the first time. The letterhead looked right. The seal looked official. But when I Googled the program name, I found it. Bachelor of International Economics. Accelerated program. Last offered, 2021. Discontinued due to low enrollment. The letter was 2 years out of date. A template someone had filled in with Min's name. I sat there in the apartment, Lynn at the coffee shop, holding this piece of paper that had cost me $8,000. Felt sick. Found an expat forum, posted asking for translator recommendations. Someone sent me a woman's contact, Vietnamese American, did confidential document work. $100 for discretion. I hired her immediately. Met her at a cafe in District 7, far from anywhere Lynn might see us. Handed over copies of the house documents, the property deed, the medical bills from her mother's diabetes treatment. Just tell me what they say. Exactly what they say. 2 days later, she sent her report via encrypted email. Property deed. Title, in Nguyen Van Minh's name exclusively. No mention of joint ownership. No clause about future transfer. No mention of my name anywhere in the documentation. Medical bills. Clinic address listed as 47 Tran Hung Dao Street, Can Tho. She'd checked out no medical clinic at that address. Building was a karaoke bar. I read the email 3 times. Then sat back and stared at the ceiling of my apartment. The aircon rattled. Motorbikes honked outside. Life in Saigon continued like nothing had happened. But everything had happened. Everything had already fallen apart. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Late February, I confronted her. Waited until she came home from wherever she'd been. Afternoon meeting friends, she'd said. I need to talk to you about something. She sensed it immediately. Her body language changed, defensive before I'd even started. I laid it out calmly, showed her the email from the university, the translator's report on the property documents, the clinic address that didn't exist. Her reaction evolved in real time. Textbook, really. Same pattern I'd seen on construction sites when someone was caught. First, tears. You don't trust me, after everything. You hire spy to check on your wife. Then deflection. My brother must make mistake with university application. Maybe different program. Clinic must have moved. You don't understand how things work in Vietnam. I stayed calm. I had them translated, Lynn, the documents. The property is in Min's name only, no mention of transfer. That's when she pivoted to anger. What kind of husband does this? Checking on his wife like she's criminal? You think I love old man like you for your money? You give because you want young wife? Now you angry because truth hurt? She stormed out, went back to her aunt's place. I gave her space, still hoping, God help me, that there was some explanation, some misunderstanding, some way this wasn't what it looked like. 3 days later, she came back to collect her clothes. I tried once more. Just tell me the truth, please. We can work through this. Her exact words, I'll never forget them. You think I love old man. You give money because you want young wife to make you feel important. Now you angry because you get what you pay for. You want real love? Go back to Ireland and fix things with your children. That last part was surgical. She knew exactly where to cut. She packed the rest of her things, left my apartment key on the counter, was gone by nightfall. I tried calling her phone next morning, number no longer in service. Went to the coffee shop to talk to her aunt, the same woman who'd cried and called me a blessing from Buddha. She looked right through me, spoke only Vietnamese, waved me away like I was bothering her, like she'd never met me before. Martin found me that afternoon, sitting alone at a different cafe in District 1, bought me a beer without asking. Saw you at the shop this morning, he said. Didn't go well, I take it. I shook my head. We've all got our version of this story, mate. Yours just cost more than most, but you're not the first and you won't be the last. How much did you lose? I asked. 15,000. Her grandmother needed surgery. Turned out grandmother had been dead for 3 years. He took a drink. Live and learn, right? At least that's what we tell ourselves. We sat there in silence, two middle-aged foreign men in Saigon, watching the traffic, nursing our beers, carrying our expensive lessons. I'd lost $56,300, 63,000 euros, nearly 3/4 of my yearly income. But the money wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was knowing that every lesson I'd learned in 40 years on construction sites, read people, spot trouble, verify before you trust, check foundations before you build, I'd ignored all of it, willingly, eagerly, because I was lonely, because someone had made me feel less alone, because I wanted so badly to believe I deserved a second chance at family, that I'd built my entire future on ground I never properly tested. I'd spent my whole life knowing the difference between solid foundations and pretty facades. I just chose not to look too closely this time. April 2024. Survival mode. I contacted a Vietnamese lawyer through the same expat forum that had recommended the translator. Consultation fee was $500. Worth it if there was any chance of getting my money back. Met him in his office in District 1. Young bloke, educated in Australia, spoke perfect English. I laid out the whole story. Showed him the documents, the translator's report, bank transfer records. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and gave me the assessment I already knew was coming. Property legally belongs to Nguyen Van Minh. You voluntarily transferred money to purchase it. Even though you believed it was for joint ownership, there's no fraud we can prove. You signed nothing, no contract, no documentation showing intent to defraud. What about the medical bills, the fake clinic? You'd have to prove in Vietnamese court that the bills were fraudulent. Then prove she knew they were fraudulent. Then, even if you win, try to collect judgment from a rural family with no assets. You'd spend another $20,000 in legal fees for maybe a 10% chance of recovering anything. He looked at me with something like pity. Mr. O'Brien, I see cases like this weekly. The harsh truth is, you gave gifts to your girlfriend's family, voluntarily. The fact that the relationship ended doesn't make the gifts recoverable. I'm sorry. I paid him his consultation fee and walked out into the Saigon heat. Back at the apartment, I did what I should have done before any of this started. I tallied the actual damage. Coffee shop rent, 2,800 USD. Phone, 180. Mother's birthday gift, 300. University tuition, 8,000. Mother's medical treatment, 5,500. Property purchase, 45,000. Wedding expenses, smaller gifts, dinners, roughly 1,000. Total, 62,780 US dollars. Approximately 56,300 euros at the exchange rate when I'd made the transfers. Nearly 3/4 of my annual income. Gone. My pension still came in monthly. The rental property in Cork still generated income. I wasn't bankrupt, wasn't destitute. Still had roughly 40,000 euros in savings that Lynn hadn't gotten to. But the money wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the confirmation. The absolute proof that my judgment, the one skill I'd relied on for 40 years, the thing I'd been proudest of, had failed catastrophically when it mattered most. I'd spotted bad crews from 100 yards away. Identified structural weaknesses before the plaster was even dry. Read subcontractors like open books. But I couldn't see what was right in front of me because I was too desperate to believe someone wanted me. I considered going home, priced flights to Dublin, stared at the booking screen for an hour. But what was waiting in Cork? The rental property I'd have to manage. The pubs where everyone would know I'd fucked up again. The faces full of pity or schadenfreude. The children who still wouldn't answer my calls, who'd use this as further proof that their father was exactly the failure their mother always said he was. At least Vietnam offered anonymous suffering. I moved to District 7 in May. Quieter area, away from the tourist chaos of District 1, away from Viet and the coffee shop where this had all started. Found a smaller apartment for $400 a month, furnished but basic. All I needed. New coffee shop. Different routine. Kept my head down. Met Martin for beers occasionally. He introduced me to a support group for expats, unofficial thing. Met once a month at a bar in District 2. 10 to 15 guys usually showed up. All of us carrying our own versions of expensive lessons. The numbers varied. Some bloke from Australia lost 8,000 on a bar that never existed. American guy lost his entire retirement, 120,000, on a girlfriend who disappeared the day after the wire transfer cleared. German fella lost his house in Frankfurt because he'd taken a second mortgage to invest in his fiancée's family's rubber plantation. Different amounts, same essential story. Loneliness plus hope minus judgment equals loss. The emotional mathematics always balanced the same. Months passed. The rainy season came, then went. The heat became familiar instead of oppressive. I learned to navigate Saigon properly, found my routines, stopped expecting anything more from the city than what it offered. Affordable anonymity, cheap food, weather that didn't hurt my knee. In June, I wrote an email to my daughter. Didn't mention Vietnam, didn't mention Lynn. Just said I'd been thinking about her, about the funeral, about how I wished things were different, how I understood she had every right to feel however she felt, but I wanted her to know I thought about her every day. No response. Week later, I wrote to my son. Similar message. More specific memories, things we'd done when he was young, before it all went wrong. Also, no response. The family I'd tried to buy in Vietnam couldn't replace the family I'd lost in Cork, and the family in Cork remained unreachable, regardless of where I lived or what I did. By September 2024 now, present day, I'd found something like equilibrium, still in Vietnam. The pension stretches further here, and after losing so much, I needed to stretch. Found a community center in District 7 that needed English conversation practice. Volunteered 2 mornings a week. Unpaid, but it gives structure, purpose. The students are teenagers mostly, genuinely interested in learning, not trying to get anything else from me. I avoid romantic entanglements entirely. When women approach in cafes or bars, and they always do with older foreign men, I politely decline. Other expats recognize the look. The ones who've learned expensive lessons have a particular wariness about them. We can spot each other. I'm not bitter, that's important to understand. I'm not angry at Lynn or her family. They saw an opportunity and took it. I was the one who chose to believe what I wanted to believe, instead of what was actually in front of me. And the truth is, I spent 40 years on building sites, right? You learn to check foundations before you build. Test the ground, verify the materials. Don't trust what you can't see for yourself. But when someone made me feel less alone after years of isolation, I forgot every lesson I'd ever learned. I wanted so badly to believe that someone could see past the age, the baggage, the failed father. See me and choose me anyway that I built a whole future on ground I never properly tested. The thing about loneliness is it doesn't make you stupid, exactly. It makes you want to believe so badly that you overlook what you'd normally catch straight away. Martin saw it. Probably half the expats in that coffee shop saw it. But I convinced myself this was different, because she seemed reluctant, because she called me uncle, because her family accepted me. All the things that seemed like proof she was genuine, those were just good salesmanship. And I'd been on enough building sites to know the difference between solid foundations and pretty facades. I just chose not to look too closely this time, because the alternative was admitting that maybe I'm exactly what my ex-wife said I was. A man who values work over family, who doesn't know how to love properly, who drives away everyone who matters. Cheaper to blame a Vietnamese girl than face that truth. Seamus is still in Ho Chi Minh City, living carefully on a reduced budget. The over 50,000 euros he lost a permanent reminder of hope's price. He hasn't heard from his children. The house in the Mekong Delta, if it even exists, remains in someone else's name. His story illustrates what we see repeatedly here on Inside Vietnam. The particular vulnerability of men who've experienced familial rejection, who come to Southeast Asia not just seeking romance, but seeking redemption, proof that they're worthy of love, capable of building family. That vulnerability, that hunger for acceptance, creates blind spots that would be obvious in any other context. Was Lynn a calculating scammer from the start? Or did genuine affection exist before opportunity and cultural expectations around family financial responsibility shifted the dynamic? These stories rarely have clear villains, just complicated humans meeting across cultural and economic divides, each seeing what they need to see. If you're watching this as someone considering a similar path, Seamus's advice is simple. Don't use Vietnam or any country to fix what's broken back home. Sort yourself first. And if you can't trust your judgment in your home country, you definitely can't trust it when you're lonely, isolated, and desperate to believe you deserve another chance. Thank you for watching Inside Vietnam. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. If you have your own story to share, reach out. And remember, the best foundation for any relationship is self-honesty about why you're really here. Until next time, take care of yourselves out there.